All right, I am live. It is 6 o'clock on Eastern Standard Time because I recognize that I have some people that are listening and maybe watching from other places. So, hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. All right, so the topic for tonight is on failing. Hi. So, on failing up. And the theme behind this is turning failures into lessons for success. I did a lot of prep work for this particular live because it was a little bit hard for me to get into a space of knowing what I wanted to talk about. And it's because the goal that I had in mind was one that it took me a long time to realize I actually needed to work on. So, of course, with this live, whatever questions, comments, and thoughts are shared, we will go through it, talk about it, and what have you. And I like to start off with a personal share. So I'm going to get into it. And this personal share encompasses a couple of different things. So when I'm meeting with a new client, I always let them know that coaching is not therapy, even though it can feel therapeutic. So this particular thing that I'm going to share kind of crosses both a little bit. It talks about the connection and how you can still have a coach and be in therapy, as well as faith. Of course, faith is tied into a lot of things that I do. You guys hear me talk about that a lot. So this also kind of shows how you can be, you can be heavy into your faith and still find use for a coach, because the topic of discussion is around control. So when it comes down to me, I had to realize, it took a long time, that I struggle, and you hear me kind of struggling trying to get it out. I struggle with control, right? I have a strong need to want to control situations. And I realized this through therapy. Wouldn't have come to it on my own because I was just in denial. I had 1,000,001 reasons as to why I was doing it, and I thought they were all great reasons. And yet, still doesn't make it any better, right? It still doesn't justify it. So, control was my thing, and through therapy, my therapist helped me to realize, okay, Denise, this is something that you really want to tackle. All right, so now I have this thing that I need to work on, and she gave me a couple of tips. However, I knew that the real work was going to be done through coaching myself through this particular challenge. So I had to set a goal, and the goal was to just be. I wanted to just be. What that means for me is relinquishing control in particular situations and just going with it. Let the situation take me where it will. Let me explore and enjoy whatever is to come from it, good and bad, right? There's always some great things to be learned and to be experienced in the not so favorable situations in our life. So the goal is to just be. And I said, I want to apply this across the board, right? When I realize that something is problematic for me, I try to tackle it strong and head on. So I said, okay, I am going to be mindful of these things. So I came up with a plan of what that was going to look like. And I'm like, okay, when I'm experiencing something, I'm just going to share what it is that I'm thinking and feeling in the moment, and let the rest play out how it will. I'm not going to go the extra mile trying to do things to get people to see my point of view and do what I'm asking them to do. I'm not going to go the extra mile trying to sway people in whatever way I'm trying to send them. I'm just going to say what's on my mind if the time arises, and then just be. Well, all right. So took this, I'm just trying this out for a little while. And of course, because the topic of today's NSG Live is failing up, y'all know that there's a failing moment that's coming right now. All right, so when it comes to work, I'll share that, and I'll also share a personal one, one on the personal side. at work, I found myself in a meeting, and this was actually a couple of times that I found myself in a meeting in one particular week. Hi! And when I was at work, now the goal was to just be in the moment, share my piece, and keep it moving. And what happened instead was that I found myself pushing forward with my suggestion. And the reason, well, before I get into the reason, I was pushing forward with my suggestion and kind of telling people exactly what I thought and why. Now, at work, when it comes down, I'm very solution oriented. I really am a strong believer in, if there is a problem, let's look at all that we have on the table. Let's put everything out on the table and figure out what we're going to do, how we're going to maneuver parts to really maximize our efficiency as a team. In my 9 to 5, I'm in management. However, I am not the head honcho in my 9 to 5, right? So of course there's someone above me who makes that final decision. I do know the skill set that I bring, and because I know it, I'm really confident when I'm speaking in particular situations. And I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. Sometimes it doesn't matter who is in the room and who I'm speaking with. If I'm really feeling strongly about something, because it's with the best of intents that I'm sharing it, I'm going to share. I found myself doing this one particular day a few times in one particular day. Now, mind you, my goal is to just be. And that was a failing moment when I kept trying to push and I say it in this way now because I had to take ownership and admit that this is exactly what I was doing. I was trying to push off my suggestions, my thoughts, and my opinions off on the rest of the leadership team because I felt like I had done so much work to understand what the situation was, and I was really secure in my resolve, my idea for resolve. I had to stop and ask myself in that moment. Well, actually, I'm lying. I asked myself after the moment because I walked out feeling like something wasn't quite right, and I realized, oh man, like I messed up on this one. I was supposed to just go in and just be and just kind of say my piece and leave it there, and I went in and I pushed, and I had to reflect on that. And in reflecting on it, I'll share with you guys how I coached myself, because I had to coach myself through understanding what the error was, how I made that mistake, and then what I'm gonna do differently. Because if you guys think that once you've identified your goal and have a plan in mind that it's gonna be smooth sailing, hang it up. Unrealistic to believe, which is why I am doing this discussion on failing up. So the first question that I ask myself is just simply why. Y'all know I love my why question. So I ask myself, why did I feel the need to take back control? And I realized that because I have this desire to want to kind of safeguard things, people, situations, it's hard for me to sit back and kind of watch us running full steam ahead into brick walls. And that's how I feel. That's how I feel when I'm in situations and it's like, okay, there are gaps that we're not addressing, and it gets scary for me, right? So that's on the level of me caring and wanting to look out for others. And some may argue, okay, well, that sounds fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Had to be super honest with myself because I had to go deeper, right? I thought that was the first response. And it's like, okay, Denise, what's wrong with that? What else are you not saying? Why else did you feel the need to go so hard in that particular moment? And I had to admit that there's a part of me that was worried that I was also, because I'm part of management, I too would have my credibility on the line in the event that something didn't go right. And I had to realize, that, okay, knowing this, I need to hold space for that. And it doesn't give me a pass to continue acting in the way that I was acting. So in comes the next coaching question that I had to ask myself, which was, what was the impact that me inserting myself in the way that I did and failing at the goal of just being, what impact did that have on those around me as well as myself? And this one was one that really helped me. Once I realized it, I came to the understanding that it was debilitating to those in the room with me. When I speak, I know that, especially in meetings and when I'm passionate about something, I know there's a certain strength and power behind my voice that kind of can quiet some other voices who need to be heard down. And in that moment, I had to remind myself that, hey, listen, one, there are people above you who need to make these decisions. And if you continue to try to point out everything that you see, you're taking away their learning moments too. And on the other side, because y'all know I said I was also worried about me going down with the ship, so to speak, kind of my credibility possibly being damaged by the decision, or at the time what I thought was a lack thereof, on the part of those above me. And to curb that worry, I had to remind myself that, listen, I am only one person. Mistakes will be made, and there's opportunities for all of us to learn. I have come to the place that I'm at because I've made a lot of mistakes and I've learned from them, and I need to make sure that I'm never impeding on anyone else's learning opportunity. Sometimes we put ourselves in these spaces and we say we want to protect and we want to safeguard everyone, and in doing so, you stunt their growth. Some people most people need to learn for themselves and know that there's a supportive team around, and that leads me into what I ended up doing to help ensure that I stuck to my goal of just being going forward. And just being, of course, was me releasing control and just kind of going with the moment. So I had to remind myself that there's a number of things that are positive that comes out of me just saying what I have to say that one time, letting those that hear it make their own decision, falling back. In doing so, it allows them to really process the information that they're receiving up against that they want to do and what they know to be the best route, and know that it says nothing about who I am as a professional. It's not a reflection of me. To step back, to put my words in the room, and then step back and let others do their job. I really had to kind of tell myself that. And from then on, it helped me to really come into these spaces and honestly feel, I walk out with a lot less headaches when I'm done with the Zooms, because I'm still working remotely. So when I'm done with the Zooms, I say my piece, go in there, let them make their decisions on however they're gonna do it. Yeah, that's power, it is. And I walk out without a headache. So that was my little story on how I failed, and I failed up. I learned. Yeah, that was my mic drop moment. I'm gonna give you another one though, because we often don't talk about how it is in our personal lives, our intimate relationships, right? So when it comes down to dealing with a partner, so I don't have a steady partner. However, I am dating, and one of the things that I have been known to do, because control is my issue, and I said I wanted to just be in all areas of my life. So one of the things that I'm known to do is to have a lot of stipulations. And they're not really spoken stipulations. They're like these mental checklists that I have in the back of my head, that any little thing that I see that goes against the checklist, I'm just kind of like, okay, well, let me explain to you what I like, what I don't like. And if you can get with what I like, then great. If you can't get with it, you know what? Thank you for your time. Keep it moving. On the one hand, it sounds like, oh, this is a woman who knows what she wants. Yeah, that can be good. Here is the opposite side. There's a reason why I'm breaking it up, so y'all know, yeah, those red flags, right? This is what I thought. This is what I thought I was protecting myself against, those red flags. Now, what I realized is that I had a lot of things in my red flags category that was not really a red flag. It was more so my inner child being fearful and saying, don't let this in, don't let this in, don't let this in. We don't want to play with them. And I had to really step back, right? Because I realized that a lot of people were moving. I was pushing a lot of people out that actually had some things to offer. And it was all because I was really trying to control the situation. And controlling the situation was controlling my potential for being hurt. And so, of course, I had to coach myself through this when I realized that I was cutting off people prematurely for things that now I consider to be small. So the first thing I asked myself is, why is my list so long? Like, why are all these things on my list, and what are they really protecting me against? And it took a long time for me to go through the list. And not all the things I realized at one time. I realized them along through experiences. And I would ask myself this question, and if the answer that I received wasn't connected to it being something that I really at my core just cannot tolerate, if it was connected to a fear and some unhealed trauma or wound that I was dealing with, then I had to kind of process that differently. I couldn't put it off on the guy coming into the space and say, you know what, you are terrible because this is how you are. I had to check myself and say, Denise, what do you need to give yourself to heal? So that way this is not such a huge issue for you, and you are not turning people away for just, trial and error, the trial and error that comes when you're getting to know people. So that was another example of a failing up moment. I lost a lot of people prematurely, so that was the fail. And then the lesson came when I started to examine what I needed to do in order to, what was really behind it, and then figuring out what I needed to do to try to slow that process down. And that part was really special for me in that I was able to realize a lot more. I was able to come to a resolve to see that there was a lot more personal things that I needed to continue to work on that had nothing to do with the guys that were coming into the space. And now I'm at a place where, and believe me, the lessons never stop, right? You never stop growing. However, I am at a more peaceful state of saying, you know what, people make mistakes. And this mistake is not an indication of doomsday. This is actually my discomfort because there's something that I'm still working on. And I can give this person a little grace to say, okay, you know what? Let's just keep it moving. Let's just keep it moving. We're working through things. It also helped to open me up to being more expressive and vulnerable with people and trusting that they can handle it, which was really scary. And I'll probably do a talk on vulnerability. I feel like that's a whole different topic in and of itself. So that was an example of how I failed up in my intimate life. So yes, I have a couple of things provided, a couple of questions rather, that I put together for all of you who are watching now, who will be watching, and I'm going to share those at the end. I see I have somebody in. I just want to check in and see if there was any thoughts that you were having as you were listening, or anything you wanted to share, so that way we can give you your shout out and kind of get some thoughts from other people going around in this live before I go into the questions that I am going to provide for everybody to help you all really examine your failures from a different perspective and figure out how to turn your own failures into success. A physical list. Tell me a little bit more. I have a physical list too. Listen, it ain't nothing, but tell me a little bit more about your physical list. For my physical list, it was honestly just some aesthetic features that I'm really partial to. One of the sweeter ones is kind, smiling eyes. Like I'm a sucker for that. So that is definitely on my list. I see and turn it into a spreadsheet. I check off when single. Oh, that is like really holding yourself accountable. So turning your checklist into a spreadsheet so that way you can kind of look at who you're dealing with and see how it connects and see how this person really truly connects. That's actually smart because sometimes we forget certain things, right? And it allows you an opportunity to see what's on that list. And then you can start to examine, okay, are these really hardcore no's for me, like hell no's for me if they make a mistake? Or is this something that I actually need to work on? When you write things down, you really get to see who you are on paper, and you get to better understand what you want to keep and what you actually really should do some personal work on. So I love that for a number of reasons. Okay, so yours was more characteristic plans. And the sweet things like flowers and dating with a purpose. Yes, refraining from intimacy and sexuality until there was clarity. Yes, like that's a whole different topic. That right there is a whole different topic that's connected to so many different parts of us. It's so interesting how when through our interactions with others, we realize more about ourselves. We realize more about the great parts of us, and we realize some of the things that we should really work on based on our patterns and how we show up for people. So having lists, once again, is an awesome thing. Yes. So I am going to get into the questions that I came up with. In preparing for my lives, I always like to make sure that I have some coaching questions that you can go ahead and ask yourself and run down and answer for yourself when different challenges arises. And of course, in keeping with the theme of tonight's live, it is failing up, turning failures into lessons for success. So I'm gonna go ahead and share the questions that I came up with. So this one was really good because I came up with some questions for about that are specific to your goal. Hey. And then I also came up with some questions that are more internal, they're more personal. So I'll share the goal ones first. So when you find yourself in a moment where you feel like you failed, one of the first questions I would suggest you ask yourself is, what didn't work about it? So breaking down, you really want to understand how you failed, because sometimes we get so bogged down with the emotions of things, that we don't really examine what actually was a failing moment. So explore what didn't work, then go into ask yourself, what did I learn about my original idea that I can improve upon? Because the truth of the matter is, the whole thing wasn't trash. You made it somewhere along your journey before you failed. So what part didn't work, right? Don't go ahead and scrap the whole idea, because that can lead to a whole different set of negative self-talk and concerns for ourselves that we're really trying to take ourselves out of, right? Just look at the parts that didn't work and figure out what you learned from that. And that learning can be something you learned about you or something you learned about the situation. The last question that I have is, how will I make those improvements? This is a two-part. So it's how will I make those improvements, and what or who do I need to help me? So after you've identified what you've learned about your original idea that you want to improve on, you want to start figuring out how you'll go about making changes. And sometimes in figuring that out, you realize, hey, I need a little bit of extra hands on deck to help me with this. So I need to take this a different route. So this is who I'm going to tap into to help me with this. We don't need to be solo dolo. We don't need to be independent on everything. Help is always welcome, right? So I'll read the 3 questions for you again. It is, what didn't work? What did I learn about my original idea that I can improve upon? And the last one is, how will I make those improvements? And what or who will I need to help me? So that's on just the general goal side when you're looking at, when you're looking at the goal that you have and trying to figure out how to turn that failure into a success. Here is one that's a little bit more personal. And there's 4 questions that I came up with for this. The first one is, how did it feel to try? So when we are talking about things that are really deep, close, and personal to us, and we feel that we weren't successful, so like I shared earlier, my biggest thing was relinquishing control and just trying to be, exploring what it felt like to actually try that. There's successes in that for us to, there's feel-good moments, because if it's something that close and personal, you're probably really giving yourself a hard-ass time. And in that moment, it's calling for you to say, hold up, what did it really feel like when I was trying this? How good did it feel? How successful did those winning moments feel for me? The second question is, what self-talk would stop me from trying again? So as I was just saying, when it's really deeply close and personal to you, you can really get on yourself hard. So it's, what is a self-talk that you're saying that's getting in your way from trying again? Because you don't want to stop. It's through the failures that we mentioned, right? It's through the failures that you learn and you continue to grow. And it adds to the sustainability of what you're trying to achieve. So ask yourself, what self-talk would stop me from trying again? Third one, what will I tell myself so that this negative self-talk is not a barrier? So after you know the negative things that you say, you have to counter it with something. It's so interesting. I saw a poem, and I'm gonna tag it on my story because it was beautiful. It was this poem about, I think it was about being ugly. And you read it one way and it was just like really negative and harsh talk. And then they said, okay, well, read it backwards. And when you read it backwards, it was like this beautiful flipped narrative. This is what question number 3 is asking you to do. And it's so funny how things align, because I wrote these questions before I saw the post, and I'm like, I have to reference that post because it's an illustration of how you can take one thought, flip it in another way, and get a whole different outcome. So we're about building ourselves up. So this is about taking what really is in terms of the negative side and flipping it to see it a whole different way. And the fourth and last question is, what new things did I discover about myself, good or bad? So the reason why I say good or bad is because it's the self-discovery that really helps you to continue to grow. So if what you learned is that when I get frustrated because the thing is so personal, I just want to quit, you learn that. Now you have to do something different. None of the work that I promote with my clients is about stopping, right? It's always about reflecting and continuing to move forward. Reflecting, putting something different in place, or continuing on with the current plan and continuing to move forward. So this last question is about self-discovery and taking that self-discovery and using it as fuel to keep you going. Self-discovery leads, of course, to self-awareness, and self-awareness is always a great driver when we are trying to achieve our goals. And that, my friends, concludes this Sunday NSG Live on Super Bowl Sunday. So thank you all for tuning in, and those who will watch later, I hope that there are some great takeaways for you. Tell a friend to tell a friend that I will be back on Valentine's Day, yes, next week, with the Valentine's Day kind of feel for the topic. So let people know I'll be here. If there are any topics that you would like to hear me talk about, please feel free to, please feel free to drop it in the comments. Feel free to drop them in the DM. If you are interested in seeking out a consultation session, you want to figure out more about what coaching is and see if NSG can help you, DM me. Instagram is my preferred way, right? No, I should have my website. I do have the website, but it's not something that I use that much. I feel like I'm constantly on one of the 3 social media platforms. So I'm always bouncing back and forth, and Instagram seems to be the most convenient for me. So DM me and I will give you the instructions from there. The consultations are pro bono, so let's talk. Let's figure out if NSG is the right fit. In 2021, we are all about growth and development. Let's keep this going despite what's happening around us. I'll be here giving the talks every Sunday at 6. I may change the time though. So if y'all have suggestions on other times that I can come on that you think may work best, please send me a message in the DMs. Other than that, y'all have a beautiful rest of your Sunday and never stop growing. Thank you guys. Bye.